This is a presentation from the Supernaut Network.
Welcome to the Imaginarium, the show where art, technology, and creativity intersect and combine to forge conversation that can only be found in the Imaginarium. I'm your host, Scott Colbert, and joining me as co-host, as usual, is the horror nerd himself, Todd Staruch. Hey, Todd, how you doing this week?
Hey, Scott, I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Kind of excited. Phoenix Comic-Con starts today.
Nice.
Yes, and I'll be going down there tomorrow and with the press pass and hopefully talking to some of the guys from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, nice.
I'm really excited about that.
That's cool.
Well, I shouldn't say the guys. It's Barry Bostwick and two of the women, so I don't know that they'd appreciate me calling them guys.
You never know.
That's very true.
You know, it's getting to be, I think every city now has a Comic-Con. Like, pretty soon it's going to be, East Bumblefuck Comic-Con is next week.
I've got my tickets for that one.
Bye.
Who do we have on the show today?
All right. Well, it gives me great pleasure to introduce these two guys because they collectively are the reason that I am even involved in the horror scene. So anybody who wants to lay blame for that, you can lay it right at their feet. All kidding aside, two very good friends of mine. We have from Hallows Eve Films, Evan Makrogiannis and Brian Weaver. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm glad you're here. You're the culprits. You're the ones that are responsible for Todd being the horror nerd.
We started as Reign of Terror.
It's only just begun. Can't wait to see where it goes.
Exactly. We met at Monster Mania maybe 4 or 5 years ago because their guys were promoting one of my favorite indie horror flicks of all time, a film called The Super, which I really loved, and they happened to be there promoting it, and we just got to talking, struck up a friendship, and the rest, as they say, is history. And now we're actually, shooting films together.
Seems like a long time ago, man, at Monster Mania.
Right?
I don't even remember the name of the movie that we had. It's a little inside joke there.
I got it.
You got it, yeah. You got it, I got it. Most people haven't gotten it. That's the problem. Yeah.
No, so these are the guys, Todd, that had you in playing the barkeeper in a sleazy tavern.
Yes, and in a 1,000 years, I never would have thought I'd get to be doing the things that I'm doing. I don't want to give too much away about the little film that we shot a couple of weekends ago. I'm going to let the guys talk about that project. So all I will say about it is I had a lot of fun, and I'm forever thankful that they, Evan and Brian, constantly involve me in many of the projects that they're working on. So, guys, tell us a little bit about that project that we did a couple of weekends ago.
Okay. You want to start?
Yeah, sure. We had gotten contact from a couple of guys in the UK who do a thing called Body Bag Films, and it seemed like they wanted to do some kind of like anthology of shorts. You had the ABCs of Death come out, all these different anthologies. So I guess their idea was to do it's called what is it called? The Grindhouse, the Grindhouse movie, or something like that. I don't know. It's still in production, but basically, it was an invite only basis, which was cool. Which means that we're on the radar outside of the tri-state area, which is cool. And basically, it's going to be a feature length made up of fake trailers, similar to the Grindhouse that came out a couple of years ago, Rodriguez Tarantino. So we were invited. I spoke to Brian, and the idea came pretty quickly, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, again, I always have a lot of fun working with Brian. Usually, the movie ideas come from conversations that are sleazy, and there's always a lot of laughs, and people pop into our minds of who we want to be in it, and it went from there. Brian, you could go from there if you want.
I think the DVD is going to be trailers, and then you could also have a 5-minute short and things like that.
Like cut scenes, maybe something like that.
Yeah, extended scenes from movies. It's little things like that. And we went with the fake trailer, and again, not giving too much away at this time. It's called The Stripper Ripper, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but we wanted to do kind of like a homage to the Giallo films because we're both big fans of them. And, we got together a couple weekends ago and shot it, and, Todd was there, obviously. And, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of spur-of-the-moment filming. We had our ideas, but it was just, a little different than the stuff we've done in the past because it was just kind of, doing it for a fake trailer. So we just had a lot more free reign, which was a lot of fun. And just everybody involved. Nicola Fiore was involved. Mel Heflin, just some people on the independent scene right now, and they were a real pleasure to work with. Michael Gingold, Alan Rokelly, and then some of the cast from our older stuff like the Super. Dimitri Callis was there, and it was just a great time. Had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Just to clarify, it's called Grindsploitation, the movie, by Body Bag Film. So that's what we'll be looking forward to come out.
And you really went against typecast with Todd hanging around strippers. I mean, that had to have been hard for him.
We had to drag him.
That's right.
Poor guy, like he just does not want to be around hot girls at all. So you had to force him.
You took him away from his Bible studies into a den of iniquity.
Okay. That's with us for a while, I guess.
Your reputation precedes you, Todd.
Oh, darn. So, guys, one thing that I don't think I ever really asked you in all of our many conversations is how did you guys meet and how did you wind up making films together?
It's funny. We actually met through the black metal scene, black metal music scene. Evan had a band. I did a zine. I interviewed Evan for the zine. This is going back to I think it was around 99, 2000, something like that, right?
Yeah, 99, I think.
And then, Evan was living in Queens. I live in Sleepy Hollow. It's like a half an hour away. We just started hanging out, realizing that we were that close. So we started hanging out. But it was funny because quickly after meeting, and getting over with the music stuff, we just realized that we both had such a love for horror films. And, we stopped talking about music and just started talking about movies, going to movies all the time, going to chiller conventions. And, eventually it just kind of evolved from there where we saw all these people making movies and they weren't really making the type of movies that we grew up on or that we wanted to see. So we just said, let's go for it.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what happened. And, the music was a big thing. I mean, we both still like black metal and other extreme forms of music, but the passion for horror, it goes back to when we were kids. We both had uncles that were very influential, to us in regards to the love of horror. It was pretty much, we just basically said why aren't we making movies? I don't think we were ever so bold as to think, I can make a movie. It's easy. I mean, there was a lot of thought. There was years of, I think both of us, could say that it's probably, somewhere in the back of our minds or in our hearts, we would have loved to have done that. But I think growing up when we did, before the internet, before, cameras and computers were so attainable, movies seemed like Hollywood. Like somehow you had to get out there and know someone. It's not as easy, as it is now. So I think that, maybe if we were born, if we were younger and we were born, in the 90s, you look online, you find schools, you find, there's so many effect schools and everything. It's a lot easier. So I think, both of us realized, like, we're getting older. Why don't we just do what we always wanted to do? And it's a passion thing, because it's not like we're making. Unfortunately, it'd be cool, but it's not like we're making a living, doing this.
Yeah, we didn't go to film school. We didn't have any kind of film background like that. It was kind of just watching movies. That's basically where our film school came from. And then with our first film, The Turnpike Killer, we just winged it and just went with it and learned from it and evolved and progressed to the next film. And hopefully, we're progressing with each thing we do.
Whenever people talk about not going to film school, they almost say it, and I'm not saying you guys are doing it this way, but they almost say it like they're embarrassed that they didn't do it. And people forget there were a lot of great directors who never went to film school. David Cronenberg, John Waters, Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan. None of them went to film school, and they did pretty all right for themselves.
Yeah,
go ahead, Brian.
Oh no, I was just going to say, over the years, I think, maybe 10, 15 years ago, it seemed like everybody was saying, you got to go to film school. And I still think that there's obviously some stuff you could learn, maybe meet some people, be able to rent out, equipment from the school. But other than that, it seems like a lot of people now are saying that, a lot of it is, a waste of time, really. The best kind of experience and the best type of learning is just getting out there and doing it.
Well, I also think the cameras and the equipment are far easier to use now than they were maybe 15 or 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's, school. I mean, if you think about it, just think about how many thousands and thousands, probably millions of kids are enrolled in film school right now, from NYU to SVA to Berkeley. And how many of those people are going to go on to actually become filmmakers? Very few. They're probably they might end up working in the field, being on set and stuff like that. But as far as actually doing it, it's hard. It's harder. I mean, funny thing is, I know a lot of people hate him, Eli Roth, but Brian and I, years back, we went to this. It was like a director's seminar. I don't remember if it was the New York City Horror Film Festival that it was associated with. But we went to NYU and to see Eli Roth speak, and it was pretty cool because there was maybe about like 50 people in the room. Most of them were all NYU geeks, and Eli Roth is an NYU grad himself, so he gets up there and he starts talking, and he's like, "Oh, how many of you guys here go to NYU?" And like everyone raises their hand. He's like, "Ah, too bad," like he made a joke out of it, but in reality, he was like, school will teach you certain things. Maybe you'll learn some technical aspects or whatever, but pretty much the real, learning experience is getting out there and doing it yourself. And he was like, with the exorbitant prices of schools, he's like, you're better off going and getting a camera, get a computer, make your own movies, learn by yourself, and that's, again, I mean, school, you'll learn, it opens your minds to things. Maybe, you'll study things that you probably wouldn't normally have, if it was up to you. But other than that, I mean, I don't think you need to. I wouldn't dissuade anyone from going, but at the same time, I think that if you hone your craft, you don't need to spend, $30,000 a year to have a professor teach you.
It's interesting that it's very interesting to hear you say that, because I'm always curious about film school. I have had people say to me, what gives you the right, Todd, to review movies? You didn't even go to film school. And I'm thinking, well, how many people really did go to film school? I think that after watching thousands of films and studying film my whole life, at least I like to think I have an eye for film,
Yeah, that's not. I didn't even realize that do movie critics go to film school. I didn't know that.
Some of them do. I guess I've had that thrown in my face a couple times. Well, I'm a professional critic. I went to film school. I'm like, oh, okay. What am I supposed to even say to that?
It's asinine because like what film school? Okay, so Are they trying to say like they could sit there and be like, oh, I was able to calibrate the light reading on that scene and it blah blah blah? I mean, no, it's you're a reviewer. You're able to ascertain what's a good story, what are interesting, camera moves, direction, and acting. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's like saying that you need to, be a literature major to be able to, read a book. I mean, it's ridiculous.
But what's funny though, like Scott mentioned before, now with cameras and how everybody can go out there and just get a camera and start making movies. The funny thing is, there's a downside to that, because definitely within the last 10 years, it seems like everybody's become a filmmaker. And I mean, I know it's all, it's all just a, matter of opinion, but it seems like there's just a lot of people making movies out there really cheap, not with no real heart and soul behind the films. And they're out there and they're pimping their stuff. And then, it takes away from the people who are out there with that heart and soul, and they're trying to do something, for the horror scene, and it kind of just gets mixed in with all the crap.
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing is like a lot of mediocrity and some mediocrity, because like Brian said, it's like just because you can doesn't mean you should. I have an interest. I like to watch MMA on TV. I'm not going to go around just because I watch it passionately. I'm not going to go around and act like I'm some kind of professional and I know how to fight and stuff like that. And it's the same thing with film. It reminds me of kind of like hardcore and metal. In just when the '90s rolled around, like there was such a craze for bands that labels started hiring anyone who they were signing anyone who had a demo. Everybody wanted to get a demo out just so they could say they had a band and a demo, and they sucked. So like. Again, there's a lot of good filmmakers out there, but I'm seeing a lot over the past couple of years of just people getting a camera, not paying any kind of attention to light, to the acting quality, to storytelling, to anything. And again, budgets have something to do with it, but you could still, if you have a good vision and you have a good know-how, you could still make a low-budget film look good. Even with some shortcomings, maybe here or there. It's just there's too much. And I think that's where like egos come into play. Like, oh yeah, I'm a filmmaker. All right, well, okay,
Yeah, a lot of people are going around now just making movies, and a lot of it falls into kind of that shock and transgressive type bullshit. But that stuff. I mean, that stuff to me is kind of cheapening all the stuff that's out there that's quality right now. Unfortunately, and then the people that have the quality aren't really getting recognized because they're stuck in this giant ocean filled with, people making these crap films.
Well, I think that has an effect on actually a lot of the arts. I know as a writer, Amazon has really opened the floodgates on some spectacularly shitty writing. And it's, as a writer who takes my craft seriously and tries to do the best I can, makes it very difficult to, rise above all the crap that's around. So which brings up the question, with all the mediocrity that surrounds you, how do you differentiate yourself from the rest of the herd?
Well, I mean, I guess it's all subjective. I mean, somebody might think that the stuff that we do is crap, but, I like to think that we have, with our films, a compelling story, characters that people sympathize with. I think that's a big thing. There's a lot of films right now, big and small, independent as well as the bigger horror, that are coming out where, you start watching a movie and within 10 minutes I can tell that I have no interest whether these people live or die, whether they're happy or sad. And I think that that's a main thing. All the movies that I grew up liking and enjoying, I was drawn in because of the character and character development. And it seems like that for me in particular is something that I think a lot of films lack, and I'd like to think that we do spend our time and make characters that people are going to remember when the films are done.
Two good examples that were huge influences on us was Maniac and Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. and those are brutal, grimy, sleazy, depressive movies. However, there's intense character development. That you're engaged, you care about what happens, whether it's to the victims or to the catalysts themselves. And I mean, like with the Super, we have a character, the central character, who engages in all kinds of disgusting behavior, from murder to sexual sleaziness, and he surrounds himself with characters who are just I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on, necrophilia, whatever. How do you make a movie like that about a character, but also have people care about him, maybe even sympathize him? And that's where the story and the writing, comes in, because, like the movies I mentioned, Last House on the Left, I can go on and on. There was an intense visceral quality, but there was more to it than that. A lot of movies now, it's like, you've got a brutal killer, and he does this and he does that, and that's it. So after 5 minutes of seeing people's genitals being ripped out and whatever, maybe if I was 15, that would be cool. But at the end of the day, it's like I'd love to see, give me the brutality, give me the gore, but let me see a story. Let me care about what's going on.
Evan and Brian, you both brought up good points about character development. For me, speaking strictly as a fan, and this is why I love the Super so much, like you mentioned, there's a lot of horrible things that happen in the movie, but by the end, you sympathize with the plight of these characters, and too many people today, like, I like gore as much as the next guy, but how many movies am I going to have to endure where it's yet another young girl strapped to a chair and getting tortured and murdered? I don't remotely care about her, and yet that stuff, like you said, is flooding the indie scene, and a quality film such as yours, I think, get lost in the mix sometimes.
Right, they're more concerned about doing something that's quote unquote shocking, which really, I mean, nothing is truly shocking anymore. But they're more worried about getting some kind of like cheap shock than they are making you want to care about that girl strapped in that chair. And at the end, so that somebody might talk about, I mean, a good example is a Serbian film. That movie, what does everybody talk about? The baby scene. Other than that, the movie had nothing, and at least in my opinion. And it's just like, that's just one example. And it's unfortunate now that's still in this, day and age, it's still considered, the stuff that people seem to be, drawn towards in a lot of people, which is, and there's always been gore. I mean, Fulci's films are filled with gore, but yet they're also filled with characters and a story that you actually enjoy and you like and you can get behind.
This is more of an observation, I think, than a question, but it seems to me a lot of the indie movies that I've seen recently have been, and that have had stories and have had characters that I've cared about, have been from people who grew up on the stuff that we all grew up on, who remember a time before the internet and remembered when we actually, conversed with people. I think some of the problem may be that these younger filmmakers are a little bit socially stilted and don't have the conversational skills or the interpersonal skills to actually create a real character when everything that they do is either texting or instant messaging or what have you.
It's a sterile society, and that's a good point. And then the other thing, which I've mentioned in a lot of interviews, is that the media does a great job of candy coating everything. I mean, when we were growing up, if you went into Manhattan, you would see the Vietnam vet with no legs begging for money because the government fucked him over. We lived through blackouts, we lived through riots. We saw pushers and pimps, walking down the street. I remember there being smashed glass and dog shit everywhere. New York was a place of danger and unrest. However, out of that political strife and all that crazy shit that was going on, it was also alive with art and music and, the greatest movies. I mean, the ones we mentioned so far, and we can go on, were all born out of that. And, a good example is, and Brian and I saw it in the movies together, the I Spit on Your Grave remake. That had, shotgun up the ass. It had all kinds of brutality and, creative, brutal kills. But it was sterile compared to the first one. It just lacked that certain depth, that those older movies have. And I think that it's a mix of like younger people, just always being on the computer. Even if there's a party, they'll all be on their cell phones, looking on Facebook or whatever. And then you mix that with the society we live in. I mean, how many soldiers have died over the past decade, or have come, however, whatever it is, 15,000 dead, 90,000 wounded, losing limbs and, having brain damage, PTSD. But you could walk around and never see any of them. You could turn on the TV and not even realize that we're at war. The terrorism, the Islamic threat is everything's played down. And I guess it's so that people, so people aren't scared or whatever it is, or whatever the reason is. But at the end of the day, it just creates zombies, And then throw in the school system. It's just a sterile, dumb world we live in right now.
Well, don't hold back and tell us how you really feel.
I was going to say, my uncle, he reviewed movies for Fangoria for years, and we would always watch them. And one thing that he said, which was a sign of the times, was that a lot of movies nowadays, the characters, even if they're friends, all they do is just bitch at each other and throw insults at each other, and it's almost like they hate each other. And it's just that I don't know, that just kind of goes as a sign of the times that that those are the people making the movies. They're the ones writing it. That's the way they act. That's obviously the way they act, and they feel comfortable portraying their characters. And it's depressing. And Scott brought up a good observation about that. And yeah, we go back to an earlier time, and we like to think that our films capture some of those feelings and the spirit of that older time.
Yeah, because I can remember growing up. The things that I remember were Watergate, the Vietnam War, and I remember, I think it was with Walter Cronkite, he always gave a casualty count at the end of his broadcast while the Vietnam War was going on. That's not something that you see anymore, and you're right, it's a very sterile environment. And my father was a policeman in Jamaica, Queens for almost 20 years, and if you want to talk about a war zone and some of the stories that he brought home, and it's a different climate today. It's people want everything sanitized. They don't want to see the ugliness that lies beneath the surface.
And that's the funny thing is we're talking about movies with extreme gore. So there is like that ugly, uncomfortable factor, but yet it's being done without there being any kind of feeling behind it, and that's the problem. It sounds like how could it be, but yet it is.
Wow, that's some heavy stuff. I think one of the problems too is now that we live in an age of instant information. Back when I was a kid and news reports would come in about Vietnam, it was maybe a news report at night or you'd read it in the newspaper. Now there's some sort of an attack around halfway around the world, and we know about it minutes later. I think we're just all so bombarded by it all the time. You almost become desensitized to it, and it leads to that sterility that you're talking about. It doesn't have that emotional punch that it did. I remember seeing my father in tears watching reports on TV about the Vietnam War. And today it's almost like I think people think that they really are watching a video game.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can just, you can Google, Google, something like a, Bosnian rape and all of a sudden, you're gonna get videos of actual rapes, taking place, or you're gonna get, beheading videos, or you're gonna, it doesn't affect anybody anymore. Just hearing a death count isn't gonna affect anybody anymore, and even watching this stuff live, it doesn't, it's numbing us.
That's a good point. As I said, my father was a policeman in Jamaica, Queens, and out of the 20 years or so that he worked there, he only fired his gun once, and when he did, he shot the guy in the leg, because he didn't want to kill him. But even just doing that, he never really got over actually shooting somebody. And today, people don't think twice about it. It's a video game mentality. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, well, everything now, I don't think anybody really, it also goes back to, the generations growing up now, nobody's responsible for anything. So, you shoot somebody, it's not my problem. It's not my responsibility. I don't have to account for this. Or you do something like that, you step on somebody, you step over somebody, whatever the case may be. It's like, nobody cares about most people anymore. And
yeah, I'm sorry, man. It's like if you went and raped and killed a girl, the emphasis would be like, well, why did poor Brian arrive at that? It wouldn't be about the girl. It would be, we got to get you the most help. We got to get you, money, comfortable and situated. And it's just backwards. It's just that's the way it is. So that's why, like, kids out there, whomever, there's no penalties. There's no fear. There's no repercussions, and even if there are, it's candy coated.
Well, think about this, like, you hear about all this stuff with the police shootings, and all this craziness that's going on, and everybody hates the police, and everybody's down on the police. You know what? Probably like 50 years ago, a cop tells you to put your hands up, you're gonna put your hands up. And that goes back to that entitled, everything, I don't have to do anything. It's all about me. And that's what's kind of led to this, this society collapsing. Is just everybody's just so self-absorbed, and it goes down, from the small things, from cutting somebody in a store line and not giving a shit, down to just resisting arrest because you don't think that you think you're entitled to not have to be dealt with by the cops, and getting shot. And that's what's leading to all this, basically self-absorbed entitlement.
Yeah, for back in the day, if a bunch of kids were loitering and the cops said scram, they ran home. Now it's like, no, make me, I have my rights, and then it escalates from there. And that's actually, getting back with the super, that was another thing that was such a big part of George's character, was that he couldn't take the world that was changing around him, and it was those little subtle things that were still intact in the 70s, like knowing the guy who sold the Christmas trees, knowing the kid, the kids down the block wouldn't mess with you because you would tell their mom and dad, that just that general kind of respect for your neighbor, respect for your town, respect for your country, knowing the rights and wrongs, but also knowing that you had to maintain a certain level of honesty and respect.
Yeah, a lot of that came out. That was stuff that we felt. There's a lot of social, even if people don't realize it because it's an exploitation film, there's a lot of social and political commentary in the super that really hits home to both, Evan and myself. And we tried to bring that out in the film, even if it's subtle.
And the super's done pretty well on the festival circuits, picked up some pretty nice awards.
The first festival we were in down in Texas, we won. It won a lot of, festivals around the country. It got a lot of attention. Unfortunately, it's just kind of stuck in distribution hell. It's not, you could get it right, straight through the producer, the distributor. But, you have to order directly from them. It's not available on Amazon. It's not available, through other distros or conventions or stores. So it's kind of like a catch-22 because we love the Turnpike Killer. That's our baby, so to speak. Our first movie. But the super, we always said, like, if one of them had to be our calling card, it would be the Super, and not just because, we had better equipment and a little bit better budget. Definitely the technical aspects of it are a huge improvement, but just the story and I'll say it. I mean, Lynn Lowry, I think that was one of her best performances, especially in the past 25 years. Manouche, who usually, just plays, I mean, she plays an angry, violent woman, but there's more depth to it. I think it was her best performance, and I think Ruby, who, usually, I mean, she's an attractive girl, so she gets a lot of roles based on her looks. She acted the hell out of her role. So I think that there's, and Dimitri's, like, the actors were just so fucking incredible, that it just pains me that, like, not only for me and Brian, but the fact that everyone worked so hard, and it is such a good movie that, people aren't seeing it the way they should be able to,
Guys, that seems to be a problem that I hear a lot in the indie film world. An indie film can go the festival circuit, pick up some awards, get great word of mouth, and it just seems to be next to impossible to get distribution for your film. And even if you do, it's some ass backwards deal that benefits only the distributor. Why do you think that is?
Probably, again, going back to, as you put it just before, just kind of like, everybody wanting instant gratification. Nowadays, back in the old days, a movie would come out, it be in some theaters, and then you wouldn't see it, for years until it was, it did another run. Nowadays, people just download the movie. I mean, once Alex, who's the producer, started sending the screeners out, within a month, it was uploaded onto all of these websites, and from there, I mean, if you look at how many times it was downloaded, thousands of times. It was viewed thousands of times. If we had $5 for every time it was viewed, illegally, we'd have enough money right now to make a huge movie. So I think that a lot of companies now probably aren't giving the type of money, giving good deals, because they know that they're really not going to make that much money, because people don't buy, movies like they used to, because of the internet, and because, people, despite what they say as being horror fans, a lot of them are thieves, a lot of people aren't really supporting horror. I mean, Todd, we've known you for years, and you've always, came out and supported the movie, in every which way possible. Most people, sad to say, are full of shit. No matter how much they say they like horror and they support horror, a good chunk of them, probably more people than not, would probably just go and download the movie because they don't want to, they don't want to spend $15 on a DVD. And I think that's pathetic. If you love horror, you should be supporting the people who are making horror, because otherwise we can't.
You go online, you go on Facebook or forums, and there's 300 people complaining about how, there's not enough support for the indie scene and blah, blah, blah. Brian and I used to do a Halsey Films Horror Night at a really cool place in Astoria years back. And we would screen, classics and new films. We'd have like maybe 8, 10, 12 people show up, stuff that's going down at the Alamo, playing some really cool old school movies. Sometimes there'll be as little as 10, 15 people there, so like, it makes me think all the people complaining about remakes, Todd, I know you've spoken about that a lot. Like, oh, remakes suck. Well, why you keep on going to the theater and spending money for it? Why don't you put your money where your mouth is? And, that's the problem. And then the other thing with the whole distro thing is, it goes back to the oversaturation. There's so many people putting out movies that they're just happy to just say, "Oh, I saw my DVD in FYE," So they'll, a distro will pick up a shitty movie, not pay the director anything, slap on a really cool cover, and put it out there and try, maybe they'll make a few bucks off it. But you also have to be, one of the things too is you have to at least be in it to win it, as the old cliche goes. So you can't just come out with a movie, send it to festivals, and then not try to get it into some of the bigger distributors. Because to be honest with you, like, we know the game. Like, there's no money to be made. But if you told me that, like, someone like Severin or Magnet was going to pick up the Super, I would say, you know what, I'll live with not making a dime off it, because at least, it'll get out there to the fans. And then, there's always the hope that you can build from there. Like, okay, well, if enough people see it and like it and word spreads, maybe it'll be easier to make the next movie and then on. But, if that's not happening and the movie's just sitting around, then, what's going to happen? It's just going to collect dust,
And then there's the whole, there's self-releasing, which, I mean, we've kind of wrestled with that over the years, just trying to figure out if that's the best route to go. And sometimes it does seem like it is, because, there's just these crooks that are running these like really crappy independent companies, and, like Evan said, they'll pick up a movie, give the director like, a couple grand, and then, oh yeah, you'll get money once we start making money. And the director's never going to see that. You know how many people we've spoke to where, they've had a movie, with a company for 5 years, and they've seen a check for like, $300, so I don't feel comfortable unless it was a good deal, a really good deal with a solid company. I would never want my movie, given to some, scumbag running a company so he can make all the money while we sit around and, figure out how we're going to get by day. That's where self-releasing comes in. And I think that is a viable option.
I'll tell you, I don't envy you guys, because just listening to that, having to make that choice between getting the movie out as to as many people as possible and seeing it in FYE or Walmart or whatever, just having it out there versus protecting your investment and your creativity. I'll tell you what, I really don't envy you. I don't know how I would be able to make that choice.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, it really is. You could rack your brain thinking about how to approach it, but I think, going forward to what, as Brian mentioned, I think some sort of self-release at least. Even if it's something like we do a special limited edition version of something where we handle it ourselves, and then if there's a distributor that likes it, we could see what we could work out. But at least we know that the initial release was handled by us, and we don't have to worry about where the money is coming or going, that that sort of thing. And unfortunately, when it comes to the illegal uploading, you can't. What are you going to do? It is what it is. The funny thing is I won't mention names, but when the Super went out, Alex Lagonis, the guy who produced it, he was very cautious, and he kind of suspected that it was going to happen. So what he did was he marked all the screeners in batches of 5 as they went out. He didn't want to take all the time to do them individually, but the version that was leaked online or uploaded online that ended up spreading had to have been one of 5 pretty reputable sources. Okay, we're not talking about like Bob Smith in Nebraska. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about 5. The names if I mention them, which I'm not going to. And that's when you step back and say, like, whoa, what the fuck, man? Like, you get all these screeners from little guys to the Hollywood level stuff. You've got websites. You got magazines, and you're going to do this. You're going to do this to the directors. It happens.
It goes back to ego, because you never know. Maybe the guy that was reviewing it is a failed director, and he couldn't, and he thought it was a good movie, so let's screw it for these guys. It could be something as simple as that. You never know, especially within the horror community, because there's a lot of fuck ups in the horror genre nowadays.
And with the Super, my brother, he was living in Florida at the time. He called me up, and as Brian said, this is like maybe a month, maybe even like 3 weeks from the onset of sending out screeners. So, we're talking about maybe the first 25, 30 copies that went out. My brother calls me up one morning, and he's like, "Dude, I saw your movie, man. I fucking loved it. Blah blah blah." And I'm like, "How did you see it?" He's like, Oh, I was. He was on some, looking online, reading about Super, the Rainn Wilson superhero movie, and all of a sudden he started seeing these the Super popping up with these pirated sites, and he went and looked, and lo and behold, there was a movie. So I had no idea, it had been pirated as quick as it did, but then we got reports of guys the Chinese guys selling them on the streets. Brian, wasn't there a guy in Toronto selling it on the street?
Yeah, somebody said there's a shop that has bootleg DVDs, and it was like some Asian market or something that sold bootleg DVDs, and they found one there. It's just crazy how fast that goes. And again, if we could have $5 for every movie or every asshole who downloaded it for free, if we could have $5 from them, we'd probably be able to make a pretty decent sized budgeted movie right now.
Yep.
Guys, do you ever? I think it's well known how I feel about piracy. I'm dead set against it. But on some level, did you ever stop and think, holy shit, somebody thought enough of our indie film to upload it, and then a couple thousand people thought enough of it to download it? I mean, as much as I love your movie, it's not the Avengers, where, it's 100 million downloads. So is there, on any level, did you think about it that way?
Well, you wonder, will the exposure help? Will the exposure, if enough people see it, are they going to talk about it? And, is it going to help us, move along? But it didn't really, you know what I mean? So I'd have to say no, you know what I mean? I'd have to say I don't think anything positive came out of it. The thing that irritated me was there were jackoffs online who downloaded it for free and then would critique things. And if you get something for free, you have absolutely no right at all to critique it, unless you're a movie review, unless you're reviewing movies. But if you've downloaded something and you stole something, you have no reason to go anywhere and say, oh, I don't think it's that good a movie because of this, and that. You have no right at all. So, that if anything just set me off to the point where I said I don't think there was anything redeeming or anything beneficial about that happening at all.
At first, I thought to myself, because there were some people who at least put up reviews, positive reviews, far away as there was one guy who was in Singapore, and I thought, all right, well, at least this guy took the time to put up a review and let the world know that he liked it. But the more and more people we would talk to, and we realized how many people had actually seen the movie from downloading it illegally. As an independent horror filmmaker and as a horror fan, I know I can speak for Brian. Let's just say we did watch a DVD-R of a movie. I can honestly tell you that if I like the movie, I'm going to go buy it, even though I've seen it. And that's the thing. The people who know better, who should know better, are partially, or are really to blame.
So, who are some of the directors that you guys like? I mean, I know you like the Giallo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, going back to, Fulci, Argento, Deodato, tons of the Italian stuff. I mean, we both grew up on the Italian stuff. John Carpenter with Halloween.
The Lustig.
Yeah, William Lustig. He's incredible. There's a lot of those guys coming out of the 70s and early 80s. Those are the guys that really inspired us.
I mean, now, obviously, he's kind of it's been a while, but Wes Craven, his early stuff. I mean, like Brian said, anything coming out of the 70s and early 80s was, a lot of it was fantastic. So, I would definitely say that a lot of those guys influenced us at one form or another.
What did you guys think of the Maniac remake?
Oh, man. That was, when I first heard that was announced, I was like, no way, man. I'm not going to fucking see this. How the hell is Elijah Wood going to play Frank Zito? What's wrong with the world? And we went to see it, and we loved it, man. It was, I think it's, of all the movies I've seen, over the past couple of years, that might be my favorite horror movie, to be honest.
I
I have to agree with you on that one. And I felt the same exact way when I heard Elijah Wood. A fucking Hobbit is going to play Frank Zito in
I think he
in
did.
Los Angeles at that. Oh, give me a break.
He was incredible in that film, and when we saw it, we actually saw it at a screening, and Elijah Wood was there doing a Q&A, and he really does have a passion for horror films, and he knew, he was well versed in in horror, and he did the Q&A. It was incredible. He was a really friendly guy. We took photos with him afterwards, but it was just a great experience because we went in there very nervous, considering that's one of our top 5 films on both our lists. And when we walked out, we were amazed by it. I think it's incredible, and I despise remakes, so that one especially was going to be a hard one to sell on me, and I loved it.
Yeah, and the credit to the director, Frank Calhoun. He was able to shoot that movie in L.A., and you can count on one hand how many times you see a palm tree. I mean, they found some gritty, sleazy areas to shoot in, and really made it look. I didn't feel like I was watching a movie shot in L.A. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I had no idea it was actually set in L.A. until afterwards, and I did a comparison, very thorough comparison between the two Maniacs on the Supernauts website, and I even put in the shot by shot different scenes that were both in the same movie, in both movies, I should say, and. I almost have to say I like the remake a little bit more than the original.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's the original is always going to be it for me. Just if anything, because of Joe Spinell.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, Elijah Wood. He did an incredible job, and it was awesome overall. I mean, the music too was incredible.
Joe Spinell in the graveyard scene is always going to be one of my favorite scenes.
And in the Super, we actually pay homage to Joe Spinell. We actually shot at his grave. I don't know if you were aware of that, but yeah, we shot at his grave, and it was actually, I think, was that the first day of shooting, Evan?
Yeah, that was the first thing we shot,
and it was just a really cool. It was Dimitri. It was just Dimitri at the grave, and Evan, me. And the DP Steve Kilcullen, we went out there and we shot, and afterwards we said a few words at Joe's grave, and it was really cool. It was kind of like he was there with us, through the shooting after that.
Oh, that's very cool. That is really cool.
Yeah, the Maniac was just image wise, and stylistically wise, even location wise, was a big influence on the Super. Even on George himself. Which the funny thing is I never noticed this until like a few years ago, that at the end of Maniac there's a shot where you see he takes there's keys on like a rack or something, but it looks like he's actually the Super of the place that he lives in.
Right.
It's so. Yeah, it's just an incredible movie. I mean, so many levels.
Even down to Dimitri's ski cap.
Yeah, the ski cap.
A little homage to Joe Spinell right there.
Yeah, the one thing that I would have liked Elijah Wood to at least try and have the greasy Joe Spinell haircut.
Well, that was Elijah Wood's a creepy looking dude, so he actually really is.
Well, he's kind of got that like
seeing him. I'm sorry, Evan. I was just saying it was. I thought it was a really cool. I didn't know that was coming until we saw it. Where you're pretty much seeing it through Elijah Wood's point of view. I thought that was a really cool original take on it.
Yeah,
and that was something that very easily could not have worked at all. And Maniac seems to be a really one of those movies that inspires a lot of people. I talked to Tom Ryan a couple of months ago. And I, was talking to him about how Faces reminded me of Maniac. And there are a couple other indie films that have that Maniac feel to it. And I'm actually really kind of glad, because it always seemed like Maniac was a little bit underrated to me.
I think for a while there were a lot of people. I think it's grown. It's grown on people over the last few years, especially because I know I remember reading a lot of reviews of it and early reviews, and there were a lot of people not really fond of the film, not big fans of it, but it definitely seems like even some of those people that we've talked to personally that have reviewed it and then watched it 15 20 years later have said, I've actually come to appreciate it a lot more. So it's definitely one of those films that, I think it's like, it ages well.
Well, I know you guys hate remakes, but is there a movie that you would like to see a remake of?
Oh, maybe if we could do it.
If you, better question, if you could remake a movie, what would you remake?
I
I
would
think I know
fight
what
for
you're
your
going to
life.
say.
Fight for
Fight
your
for your
life.
life?
Yeah.
That would
Just
be great.
because of the political, just because everything nowadays is so politically correct, even more so than it was back then, and even back then, Fight for Your Life, caused a little bit of a stir. So considering everybody right now is so sensitive and basically like meek, I would just love to do a modern version of that.
Yeah, I was going to say I Drink Your Blood, but yeah, Fight for Your Life. We definitely we could have a lot of fun with that.
All right, I think we're going to get close to wrapping this up. Todd, do you have any last questions?
Yeah, when are we doing a full-length version of the Stripper Ripper?
It's yeah. Go ahead, man.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, as soon as we were done, we talked the next day, and Evan and me both were like, "Man, it's such a simple premise, but done the right way." You don't need to always. A lot of people try to just come up with all these things that have never been done. You can do some of the same things as long as you have a cool take on it. You can do a slasher film still as long as it's done well and it has characters and things like that you could get behind. And the day after, we talked on the phone, and we both said, "Man, that was a lot of fun." The characters that were developed within that that day, basically that what's going to come out of that trailer, they could. We were both really excited about seeing those characters become larger than they are at this point. So there's a good chance that could happen because we both already have some crazy ideas to go with it, and it's pretty much already it's written itself basically within that trailer. We pretty much have the entire story. So I think we're probably gonna see something come of that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I would love to make it. Also, just to have Mike Ingold strapped to a wheelchair for longer than a day. So that's a little teaser. Yeah. But yeah, like Brian said, I mean, basically, the trailer features, what would be the main characters of the movie. So everything, all the plans are laid there. We just need to expand on it. So just to give everybody an idea of what we got going on, we did that. We're also working on an anthology of shorts that we're going to release as a feature. We don't have a name for it. It's not done yet. But we're working with Bart Mastronardi as a DP and Alan Rokelly as an editor. We've got some fantastic things going on there. So hopefully we'll be done by winter with that. So that'll be the next proper release. But we'll probably use that time to see if we could get the Stripper Ripper going into a full length. And then we have a lot of ideas. It's just a matter of finding. I think we agreed that we're comfortable working with a low budget, but we don't want to come up with an idea that we like and kind of like shortchange it. Like we're not going to change an idea to fit the budget. We're either going to be able to do it or we're not. So I think so. Look for the anthology. Look for the Strip Ripper, and some other things going on down the pike from there.
And you have a website that you want to pimp?
We have a domain name.
Yeah.
HalazziFilms.com. That's at the moment it might go to like a MySpace page or something like that. It needs some updating, but that's where you could find us as well as like just Facebook. Unfortunately, right now we're just worried about getting enough stuff together to really get warrant a website.
Yeah, if anybody wants, the Turnpike Killer is out on Wild Eye releasing for the DVD. If you want a VHS copy, big box, you can contact me. Anything else, you can write to me or Brian on Facebook. There's also a Howl's E Films Facebook page, and I do want to also mention. I'm very proud of my son Liam. He wrote and directed a movie called Survive, which Todd was a big part of. Not only was he a big factor in getting it done, helping getting it done financially, but he also acted in it and did a very good job. And the DVD hits this weekend at the Severed Film Fest and Horror Convention in Pennsylvania, and King of the Witches is putting it out. So very, very excited about that and proud of Liam for getting it done.
Fantastic.
Liam's the future of horror. No questions about that.
Well, he certainly has a good dad to learn from. That's for sure. He'll teach him the right way.
Thank you, man. And Edric is the Antichrist. That's
that's still up on YouTube, right?
Yeah, we did a shortcut called Unhallowed Ground. If anybody wants to check it out, it's up on YouTube. It's a satanic occult. We had a lot of fun with it. It's a fake trailer type deal, and in it, Brian's son plays the Antichrist and does a really creepy, well job of it.
I'll make sure to put that up on the show page when it goes up on Monday, so people can check it out.
I'll send one of us will send a link to you guys so you could, because I think it might be I think Steve Kilcullen put it up, so it might not be on Hallowed Ground. It might be some roundabout way of finding it. So I'll send it to you guys so you can check it out.
All right, sounds good, guys. I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been real fun. Been very interesting. 60 minutes.
Yeah, it was a blast. I really appreciate it. Yeah, that was great questions and fun, laid back. That was cool.
All right, and whenever you have the stripper ripper ready to go out, let me know. We'll get you back on and talk about that some more. And we can also bitch about the world some more, too.
Absolutely.
All right.
And like I said, we'll have links on the show page where you can find information about their work, as well as the usual social media links. And you can also subscribe to the Imaginarium on iTunes, as well as rate and leave a review. And if you enjoy the show, check out our other podcasts on the Supernauts Network at thesupernauts.com, including my newest show with the one and only UK filmmaker Wade Radford, Jailbait, where we talk about jailsploitation movies. Because what's better than a good old jailsploitation movie with a lot of tits? And until next time, may all your journeys be filled with pure imagination.